You've watched the videos, read the books, repeated the affirmations, and still, the relationship is not here. The money is not here. The opportunity is not here. The relief is not here. So you try harder, you visualize more, force yourself to think positive. Repeat affirmations while your nervous system is in complete panic. And nobody tells you that this is the very thing blocking what you want. Because manifestation was never meant to come from emotional emergency. You were never meant to create your future from fear, pressure, desperation, or survival mode. There was a woman in the early 1900s named Florence Scovel Shinn who taught that life responds to expectancy, belief, and inner acceptance. And decades later, teachers like Hicks would describe this as allowing, removing resistance, entering alignment instead of force. Because the moment you stop gripping so tightly, something begins to open. Your body softens, your mind quiets, and life finally has space to move again. So stay with me tonight, because this Night Rampage is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about shifting out of panic and into the state where manifestation can finally reach you. And somewhere during this rampage, you may begin to feel the pressure leaving your body. And when that happens, everything starts to change. Most people think manifestation is about controlling every thought, monitoring every emotion, saying the perfect affirmation, never doubting, never feeling sad, never feeling fear. But that creates exhaustion, not alignment. Because now, instead of simply living, you are constantly checking yourself, wondering if one negative thought ruined everything, wondering if your anxiety blocked your manifestation, wondering if your sadness pushed your desire further away. And that pressure becomes its own form of resistance. Because real allowing is not perfection. Allowing is when your nervous system slowly stops fighting reality long enough for possibility to enter again. It is the moment you stop gripping the future so tightly that life finally has room to breathe. And this is why people sometimes manifest things only after they give up. Not because they stopped caring, but because for one brief moment, they stopped strangling the outcome with fear. They stopped checking every hour, stopped forcing every detail, stopped trying to control how and when everything must happen. And suddenly, something moved. An opportunity appeared. A phone call arrived. A new idea entered their mind. A door opened that they could not see before, because panic narrows your perception, but allowing expands it. And this is what teachers like Florence Scovel Shinn tried to explain when they spoke about faith, expectancy, and speaking from inner knowing instead of fear. Not forced positivity, but quiet openness. Not pretending, but loosening the emotional grip that keeps the nervous system trapped in survival mode. So tonight, you do not need to force yourself to believe harder. You do not need to become spiritually perfect. You only need to begin softening the panic, little by little, because the moment the panic begins to loosen, allowing begins to enter. So tonight, before we try to plant new beliefs, before we try to receive, before we try to manifest anything at all, we first prepare the mind. Because a mind that has been living in fear for too long cannot instantly relax into trust. A nervous system that has experienced disappointment, rejection, uncertainty, survival mode, often begins expecting more of the same. And most people do not even realize they are rehearsing loss every single day. They wake up expecting the text not to come, expecting the money not to arrive, expecting things to fail again, expecting life to delay them, forget them, overlook them. And over time, the mind becomes trained to search for absence instead of possibility. So, this part of the rampage is about preparation, not forcing belief, not pretending, not becoming perfectly positive. Preparation. Little by little, we begin teaching the mind that receiving is still possible, that support is still possible, that love is still possible, that opportunities are still possible, that life has not finished unfolding for you. And this is why repetition matters. Every time you return to this night rampage, you interrupt old emotional patterns. You stop feeding panic for a few moments. You stop rehearsing fear for a few moments. You stop strengthening the expectation of disappointment. And slowly, the mind begins opening again. Because manifestation is not only about what you say, it is also about what your nervous system has become prepared to receive. A person who expects rejection will often brace against love before it even arrives. A person who expects failure may unconsciously close themselves to opportunities they prayed for. A person who lives in constant panic may not notice the very doorway life is trying to open. So tonight, we are softening that inner resistance. We are preparing the mind for a different relationship with life, not through force, but through gentle repetition, awareness, and emotional release. And the more the panic softens, the more space begins to appear inside you. Space for trust. Space for expectancy. Space for receiving. So stay with me, because in the next part, we begin planting something new. Nearly 100 years ago, Florence Scovel Shinn wrote about something most people still misunderstand today. She taught that life responds not only to words, but to expectation, to the quiet inner relationship you hold with what you desire. Because many people speak hopeful words while emotionally expecting disappointment. They say they want love, but secretly prepare for abandonment. They say they want abundance while bracing for struggle. They say they trust life while constantly checking for signs that nothing is working. And the nervous system absorbs all of it. This is why planting new seeds matters. Because whatever you repeatedly rehearse emotionally begins shaping the way you experience life. Not overnight, not magically, but gradually, consistently, deeply. So tonight, instead of feeding fear, instead of rehearsing delay, instead of expecting things to fall apart again, we begin planting something different, a new emotional atmosphere, one where life is still moving, one where possibilities still exist beyond what you can currently see, one where your future is not permanently defined by your present emotions. And this does not mean pretending everything feels perfect. It means allowing a new possibility to exist beside the fear. A small opening, a small willingness, a small expectation that life may still surprise you. Because the moment expectancy changes, you begin relating to reality differently. You notice opportunities differently. You speak differently. You carry yourself differently. You respond differently. And over time, life begins responding differently too. So let these words settle into the mind tonight, not as pressure, not as forced positivity, but as new seeds quietly entering the soil. And the less you dig them up with fear, the more naturally they begin to grow. Your mind is now being prepared to receive differently, prepared to notice possibilities instead of only problems, prepared to soften instead of panic, prepared to expect movement instead of constant disappointment. And this is where trust begins to matter, because once the seed is planted, constantly digging it up in fear only interrupts its growth. This is why so many people delay their own peace. They plant the intention and then immediately begin questioning it, checking constantly, doubting constantly, looking for proof every hour, watching the absence of the desire more than the possibility of it arriving. But expectancy cannot fully grow inside a mind that keeps rehearsing panic. And this is why teachers like Florence, Scovel, Shinn spoke so deeply about faith, spoken word, and trusting the unseen movement of life. Not because life requires perfection, but because fear constantly interrupts inner openness. So tonight, you do not need to force the outcome anymore. You do not need to emotionally chase what you already planted. Your job now is different. To remain open, to remain available, to continue softening the panic instead of feeding it. And maybe the manifestation does not arrive through force at all. Maybe it arrives through space, through emotional openness, through unexpected timing, through doors your fearful mind could not previously recognize. So let the nervous system rest tonight. Let the mind stop monitoring every detail. Let life breathe for a moment without trying to control every second of the unfolding. Because manifestation is not only about calling something in, it is also about becoming emotionally available to receive it. And the more peace replaces panic, the more naturally life can begin moving toward you. So soften now. Trust a little more tonight, and allow what you planted to grow quietly within you. And if this Night Rampage helped prepare your mind to receive differently, there are more Night Rampages and sleep surrenders here on the channel designed to help calm the nervous system, release emotional overwhelm, and gently guide you back into alignment, one night at a time.